Students, I hope you're all well. My name is Timon Munir and I have been teaching accounting for the last 16 years. In this video, I'm going to show you some basics of accounting, which is double entry. I have come across some students who have struggled in their accounting module, and the reason being their fundamentals were not strong enough. In this video, the technique which I'm going to show you is not very different from what you have already studied in the books. It's just that the way I will be presenting it and the technique I'll be using it, I'm sure you will find it very useful. And once you will understand the accounting, which is the double entry, which is the language of accounting, I'm sure you'll enjoy the module accounting. So this video is not just aiming at one particular group or a university. This video is for everyone. I hope you will find this technique useful. Looking at the basics of accounting, I call it the pillars of accounting, which is assets, expenses, drawings, capital, liabilities, revenue. And the good thing is, in accounting there are two principles. They have debit side and the credit side. Whenever there is an increase in asset, it is always debit. Whenever there is a decrease in asset, it is always credit. Expenses, whenever they increase, they are always debit. Whenever they decrease, they are always credit. The drawings, increase in drawings is debit and decrease is credit. Capital, an increase in capital is always credit and the decrease is debit. Increase in liabilities is credit and the decrease is debit. Increase in revenue is credit and the decrease is debit. So you need to remember these 6 pillars. I call them 6 natures as well. And their arrows. So the easy way to remember these arrows is if I combine these 3 arrows and just draw 1 arrow, and if I combine these 3 arrows and there's just 1 arrow, so you can see the first 3 pillars or first 3 natures, whenever they increase they are always debit, and when they decrease they are credit. Now I'm going to go through an example with you and show you how this technique works. So here's an activity. Now it tells me started business with cash £1,000. So first of all, we need to identify the 2 things which are in this transaction. So this is a transaction, or you can call it a sentence. Out of this sentence, we need to draw a double entry. So started business, that is my capital, which is increasing because before that I did not have any capital. Now I have a capital of £1,000, and before that I did not have money for my business. Now I have cash, which is an asset, and that is increasing. So the capital is increasing and cash is also increasing. So my double entry will be cash debit and capital credit. So following this table, this technique, you can see when there's an increase in cash, it is always credit. Increase in capital is always credit, and the increase in cash, which is an asset, it is always debit. The next entry is paid £900 for the opening cash into the bank. So now we are transferring money from our cash account into our bank account. So bank is an asset which will increase. So bank means in the business bank account we had zero balance, and now it is increasing to £900, and the balance in the cash is now decreasing, which is an asset, and it is decreasing. So now you can see one asset is increasing and the other asset is decreasing. So you can see when asset increases it is debit, when asset decreases it is credit. Therefore my double entry will be bank debit and cash is credit by £900. The next entry is bought goods on credit from S Homes. So we are buying on credit. That means we will be paying later. So it's a liability. It's a liability which is increasing. On the other hand, we are buying goods, purchases. So purchases are trading goods which we will sell later. So purchases are recorded as an expense. And therefore my double entry will be purchases debit and payables credit. Purchases are my expenses which are increasing, therefore they will be debit. And I'm going to record it as purchases and £78 and payables credit by £78. Notice one thing, I did not write expenses, because if I'll keep on writing expenses, so any other expenses, for example repairs and insurance, will also be recorded as an expense, and at the end of the month I will not know which expense relates to insurance, which expense relates to repair, and which ones are for purchases. Therefore we need to write their names. Similarly, you have noticed that bank is an asset, cash is an asset, but I recorded them as bank and cash rather than asset and asset. So we do not name them by their natures, we name them what is given in the transaction. In the next transaction you can see that I have motor van and I'm paying by check. So bought motor van by check. Check means bank, which is an asset, and the money is decreasing from my bank account, means asset is decreasing. And motor van is coming into my business, which is an asset, and that asset is increasing. So asset is increasing. And again, you can notice from this table that increase in asset is debit, decrease in asset is credit. Motor van will be debit, by £500, and bank account will be credit by £500. The next entry is bought goods for cash. So this time we are paying cash. Cash is my asset, which is decreasing, and goods, which are expenses, are going up, they are increasing. Therefore my double entry will be purchases debit £55 and cash is credit £55. So you can see that expenses, when they increase, they are debit, and cash, which is an asset, is decreasing, and that is being credited. The next entry is about sales. So sold goods on credit to D-More for £98. So we are selling, that is our revenue, which is increasing. And we are selling on credit means we will be collecting money from Timur. So he is my receivable. And receivables, you know, are assets. So this is an asset which is increasing. Now looking at the table, when there's an increase in revenue, we credit it. Receivables are my assets. When there is an increase in asset, it is debit. Therefore, my double entry will be receivables debit and revenue is credit. For £98, revenue is credit. It's credit. Returned goods to S Homes for £18. So you can see that this transaction is related to the previous transaction. On 4th of August, we bought goods from S Homes on credit. That means S Homes is my liability. So S Homes is my liability. When I bought goods from S Homes, my liability was increased, and now my liability will decrease because I'm returning some of the goods, and I only owe £60 to S Homes. So return goods, so that means my purchases, which are expenses, are decreasing. And you can see when the liability decreases, when there is a decrease in liability, it is debit. And when there is a decrease in expense, it is credit. Therefore, my double entry will be payables debit by £18 and purchase return will be credit by £18. In the next transaction, sold goods for cash £28. And in this transaction we are selling goods, which is revenue. And the revenue is increasing. And on the other hand, I am receiving cash. Cash is my asset, which is increasing. So going back to the technique, when there is an increase in revenue, that is credit. Cash is my asset, which is increasing, and therefore it will be debit. My double entry will be cash debit for £28 and revenue credit by £28. On 22nd of August, bought goods on credit from Kingston Equipment Company for £150. So bought fixture. Fixture by nature is an asset which is increasing. On the other hand, I'm buying on credit from Kingston, means I will be paying later. So it's my liability which is increasing. Therefore, my double entry will be assets increasing, they will be debit, liability increasing will be credit. And remember, I'm not going to write asset, I will be writing fixture. Fixture, debit by 150, and payable, credit by 150. On 28th of August, D. Watson lent us £100, paying us the money by check. So we have taken a loan from D. Watson. So D. Watson, we are taking a loan from D. Watson. Loan is a liability which is increasing. On the other hand, money in my bank account is an asset which is increasing. Remember, check means bank because check is cleared through the bank. So liability is increasing and asset is increasing. So over here we can see that liability is increasing, that should be credit. An asset, which is a bank account, is increasing, and that will be debit. Therefore, my double entry will be bank debit and loan credit. £100 and loan is credit by £100. In the next transaction, on 29th of August, we paid S. Holmes his account by check, which is £60. Now remember, on 4th of August, we bought goods for £78. On 12th of August, we returned some of the goods worth £12. Therefore, the outstanding balance was £60, and today we are clearing that balance. Remember, S. Holmes was my liability, and today when I'm paying £60, the liability is going down to 0. So from 60 going down to 0. So liability is decreasing. Liability is decreasing, and the money out of my bank account is also decreasing. So my liability is decreasing, balance in the bank account is also decreasing because the money is going out of my bank account. Now let's go back and look at the technique. When there is a decrease in liability, it is debit. Whenever there is a decrease in asset, it is credit. Therefore, my double entry will be payable debit by 60 and bank is credit by 60. The last transaction is we paid Kingston Equipment Company by check 150. Remember that we bought goods, we bought a fixture, from Kingston on 22nd of August. Today on 31st of August we are paying the balance back. So Kingston was my liability, and again today my liability is decreasing. From £150 it is going down to 0, and I'm paying by check, which is bank is an asset, and asset balance is decreasing. Very similar transaction to 29th of August. When there is a decrease in liability, it is debit. Whenever there is a decrease in asset, it is credit. Therefore, my double entry will be payables debit, bank credit. Bank is credit. I hope you'll find this technique very simple and easy. Once you remember this technique, you will not have to draw it again and again when you're doing some double entry questions. I always suggest my students to write it down on a sticky note, stick it on your wall. When you're studying, you can look at it and follow the technique. Once you will memorize it, then you do not have to draw this again and again. Thank you very much, and I hope you will find this video useful.